Hello, good morning, teacher. Now let me start our presentation. Our research topic is the determinations of economic growth in Malaysia. Our group members are Xin Wei, Li Piaoxin, Wang Mingqi, and Guo Shijian. We have 6 parts. The first part is introduction, the second part is the objective of the study, the third part is data source and sample period, and the fourth part is econometric model. The fifth part is the results and discussion, and the last part is the conclusion. Now let me start the first part, introduction. GDP is the core indicator of national economic accounting and is also of great importance in measuring the economic situation and development level of a country origin. From the data of Bank Regular Malaysia, we can see that GDP has maintained strong growth over the past 3 decades, reaching 8.7% in 2022 and 3.3% in 2021. We can see from the GDP growth curve that in most years, the GDP growth rate is as follows. One can see that in 2020, the economy was in a state of negative growth. What factors lead to the economic decline is worth exploring. Numerous studies have been conducted in the past to identify the factors affecting GDP growth and found that for Malaysia, gross capital formation, foreign direct investment, imports and exports of goods are considered to be the common influencing factors affecting Malaysia's performance, with studies showing a two-way causal relationship between CAP and GDP. Researchers show that there is a long-term relationship between CAP and GDP. That is, accelerating the growth of capital formation will lead to sustained long-term economic growth. At the same time, that FDI has always been an important source of economic growth in Malaysia. FDI not only brought capital investment required for the economic growth, but also brought related technologies and a large amount of management knowledge. There is a significant relationship between FDI and economic growth. At the same time, we found that even though Malaysia's GDP has been showing a growth rate, there is a significant decline in 2020, which is due to the significant impact of COVID-19 on the global economy. The pandemic has distributed supply chain, reduced the demand for goods and services, lead to business closure and cause major job loss. Therefore, we're studying the relationship between gross capital formation, foreign direct investment, import and export of goods, and GDP growth. This paper will also deeply discuss the impact of these factors on GDP in the context of the epidemic. Summarize 2 different results before and after the epidemic and make a comparative analysis of the 2 results. Now let me start the 2 part, the objective of the study. The objective of this study is to explore the factor influencing Malaysia's GDP growth, focusing on gross capital formation, foreign direct investment, and imports and exports of goods. The study highlights a two-way causal relationship between CAP and GDP, stressing that accelerating capital formation can sustain long-term economic growth. FDI has proven to be an important source of economic growth, borrowing not only capital but also technical and management knowledge, which has established a significant relationship with economic growth. In addition, imports and exports also play a key role in economic development. We also examine the impact of COVID-19 on these relationships. By comparing the period before and after pandemic, it compares the economic growth model from 1970 to 2019 with the economic growth model from 1970 to 2022. The study aims to analyze the factors affecting Malaysia's GDP growth in different economic contexts and the impact of the pandemic on GDP growth.
Now, the next one is part 3, data source and sample period. According to the introduction in the first and second part of this study, the 5 variables studied are GDP, EXIM, CAP, and FDI. The data used in this report are from the World Development Indicators in the World Bank. The specific data include Malaysia's gross domestic product, GDP, gross capital formation, CAP, foreign direct investment, net influence, FDI, imports of goods and service, IM, export of goods and service, EX. Data are for annual period between 1970 and 2022 with no missing data, used to analyze trends in economic growth and its determining influences. Now, let's talk about the part 4, econometric model. Based on the above literature, we establish the following economic model. INGDP equals beta 0 plus beta 0 INCAP plus beta 2 INFDI plus beta 3 INIM plus beta 4 INEX plus CSE. To be specific, GDP is gross domestic product, CAP is gross capital formation, FDI is foreign direct investment, IM is import of goods and service, and EX is export of goods and service.
Next is the 5th part, results and discussion. From the table 1, we can see the descriptive statistics. Due to the huge order of magnitude of the collected data, in order to reduce the difference between the variables, we take the log of each variable. From table 1, the mean value and median value of the dependent variable log GDP are $24.9 and $25 respectively. The descriptive statistic data of the independent variables log CAP, log FDI, log import, and log export review their distribution characteristics during the observation period. Overall, these variables are stable and symmetrical. It is suitable for further econometric modeling. To study the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we compare Model A and Model B. Both Model A and Model B have the high R-square and the adjusted R-square, indicating that the overall fit of the equation was good. However, from the t-test of each independent variable coefficient, only the coefficient of log FDI is not significant. Although log FDI is not significant in two regression models, its coefficients have inconsistent positive and negative signs, which may hint at the complex impact of this variable on GDP under the influence of COVID-19. We speculate that the long-term effects of FDI on the economy may be greater than its short-term effects, and these long-term effects may not be captured by existing statistic regression models. Therefore, it may be more appropriate to adopt a VECM model to capture more fully the long-term impact on FDI on GDP. Then we conduct the unit root test. The two models analyze the economic time series data of different periods. The ADF test result shows that all variables in the two models are non-stationary and their p-values exceed the standard significance level of 0.05. After making a first-order difference to the variable, the p-value is significantly reduced to 0. This showing that all variables in both models are considered to be I1, indicating that they become stationary after one difference. From the VECM model as shown in the table 4, Trace test indicates two conjugating equations at 0.05 level in the model A, while trace test indicates one conjugation equation at 0.05 level in the model B. However, both model A and model B max eigenvalue test indicates no conjugation at the 0.05 level, as shown in the table 5. From the table 6, the model A and model B gradual causality of all variables on other variables is not significant. This indicates that the single variable in the short run does not have a strong predictive power for other variables in both time periods. In view of this, we conduct further VECM analysis to capture the long-run relationship and short-run dynamic adjustments among the variables. In the VECM model, both model A and model B of C15 ECT carry significance, so there is a long-run carrier. The following are the equations. After using the Johansen, we use ARDL method to conduct tests on the long run, causality, and the configuration.
This part is the ARDL results. It shows that there is a significant relationship between GDP and its lag value, capital imports and exports. However, the coefficient of FDI is relatively small and not statistically significant. The R-square value of the both models are abnormally high, which indicates that the model fits well. First, we conducted a wild test on the coefficient. It can be seen from the table that the variable FDI is not significant, and there is no short-run carrier relationship between FDI and GDP. Accordingly, there is a short-run carrier relationship between other variables and GDP. From the bond test, model A shows there is a co-integration relationship, indicating a long-run carrier between the variables. However, model B provides a weaker indication of co-integration, which may indicate that including additional observation affects co-integration between variables. From the comparing of the results of the two models, it can be seen that the integration of GDP has been affected during COVID-19. When we analyze with co-integrating relation test, only FDI is not significant in model A, while that coefficients of each variables in model B are not significant. These results further validate the results of bond test before, indicating that the long-run relationship between economic variables become uncertain due to the impact of the epidemic. Both models A and B show that areal correction term coefficient is significant, indicating that the residues are significant. Combined with the previous test result, it can be seen that in model A before the outbreak of the epidemic, there is a strong gradual causality relationship between GDP and capital imports and exports. But in model B, which is affected by epidemic, there is no strong gradual causality. After the ARDL, we tested heteroscedasticity on two models, which both showed that the non-hypothesis of homoscedasticity was not rejected. It is thus shown that there is a constant variance among the residues. The results in model B imply the presence of latent variance, but are not obvious. Thus, there is homogeneity between the values of independent variables, and the experimental conclusions are reliable. Also, the residual distribution is mainly used to evaluate the fitting effect of the model. According to the residual normality test results of model A and B, the mean value of the two models are close to zero, indicating that there is no systematic deviation. The kurtosis of the both models is lower than the normal distribution, so the distribution is flatter. The p-value of model A and model B are 0.72 and 0.67 respectively, which cannot reject a non-hypothesis, so the residual distribution is normal. The model performs well on the whole. The serial correlation LM test results in this table can be interpreted in conjunction with the previous regression outputs. The serial correlation LM test shows that for both models, the non-hypothesis of no serial correlation within two legs cannot be rejected, indicating that there is no serial correlation in the residuals in both models. The adequacy of the model specification and the reliability of the estimate are thus confirmed. This conclusion assures us that the model estimates are robust and therefore support the inference drawn from the estimate coefficients.
Then we get the conclusion. In this study, we examined the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on GDP in Malaysia by using data from 1970 to 2022, focusing on the relationship between GDP and the key economic variables. We first determined that each variable is stationary after first difference, and the Johansen configuration test shows that there is a long-term equilibrium relationship among the variables. Then in the VSM model, although FDI does not show significant short-term gradual causality, its presence has a long-term impact. Then the ADL Y-test confirms that CAP, imports, and exports has significant short-run effects on GDP, while FDI does not show short-run significance in either model. In the bounce test, the existence of a long-run relationship is further confirmed. In the pre-pandemic period, the F statistic indicates strong evidence of configuration. However, the test results from Model B shows that the configuration relationship becomes less certain at more stringent significance levels, which may be due to the economic distributions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The configuration relation test further proves this point. From this, we can see that capital formation, imports, and exports have a strong causality on GDP performance, but after the outbreak of the pandemic, this strong causality no longer exists. So capital investment and trade play a vital role in deriving economic growth, but COVID-19 has affected the economic situation in Malaysia to a large extent. The impact of FDI on GDP in Malaysia is more complex, and its direct impact on GDP may not be as significant as expected, and further research on its role in the changing global landscape is needed.